Christian denominations, family tree.
Hi, this is Matt Baker. Today I'm going to start a new series in which I'll be building a huge family tree of every major Christian denomination, which is something that many of you have been asking me for a long time. As you can imagine, the chart is going to be quite large because there are lots of different types of Christians. In fact, at this point, I'm not actually sure how many episodes will be needed to cover everything. But however long it takes, the plan is that at the end, I'll have a complete chart of Christian denominations that I will be making available as a poster. In this first episode, I'll be starting at the very beginning and discussing how the religion of Christianity developed out of Second Temple Judaism. I'll also be discussing some of the earliest schisms that occurred within the church. These resulted in the development of the Oriental Orthodox churches, as well as the Church of the East, two branches of Christianity that often get overlooked. But first, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Blinkist. Imagine you're about to start a Church of the East. You know, like trying to chart out a denomination and the more religious aspect. How do you books that you want to read in order to Christian denominations? Well, that's where Blinkist. Blinkist is the app that allows you to get a large amount of knowledge in a small amount of time. Basically, Blinkist takes best-selling non-fiction books and breaks down to their main ideas. So, take for example Tom Holland's latest book, Dominion: How the Christian Revolution Remade the World. It's a 612 pages. However, using Blinkist, you can listen to an in-depth summary of the book's main ideas in just 30 minutes. Currently, Blinkist has over 5,000 titles in 27 different categories, as well as a bunch of podcasts. There's also a new feature called Blinkist Connect, where you can get 2 premium memberships for the price of 1 and share learning with a friend. So if you want to start learning with Blinkist, you can do so right now. As a Useful Charts viewer, you will get a 7-day free trial, followed by 25% off a premium membership, plus a second premium free of charge. Just check out the link in the description or pinned comment. Okay, let's start at the very top of this chart with ancient Israelite religions. Many centuries before this represents the religion of the people who lived in the kingdoms of Israel and Judah during the Iron Age. So basically about 1000 BCE to 600 BCE. Now there are several competing ideas about what exactly the ancient Israelite religion looked like and how it came to exist. So rather than present you with only one view, let me give you at least 2. The first is the view given in the Bible. According to a literal reading, God revealed himself first to a man named Abraham, but then Abraham's descendants ended up in Egypt as slaves who became known as the Israelites. God then revealed himself to Moses, who helped lead the Israelites out of Egypt and reached the land of Canaan, where they conquered the local population there and eventually established a kingdom, which was then later split into 2. So according to this view, the Israelites knew about the nation God from the start, but then after that, they started disobeying that God and worshipping other gods instead, which led to the destruction of their kingdoms. The northern kingdom of Israel went first to the Assyrians, and the southern kingdom of Judah second to the Babylonians. So that's one view. The other view is based on a more literary reading of the Bible, combined with what we've come to learn from secular history and archaeology. According to this view, the Israelites were probably just a subset of Canaanites who survived the Bronze Age collapse in the hill country, and who then combined with other nearby people groups to form a tribal confederation. This confederation then evolved into the kingdom of Israel, which would have originally been polytheistic. However, within the kingdom of Israel, there were some priests who advocated for henotheism, which is the worship of only one God without denying the existence of other gods. And the one God they advocated for is the one represented by these 4 letters:
I estimate
not supposed to pronounce
to make up
so
the majority
Hashem,
of the population,
which simply means
in
the name.
157
Anyway, the kingdom of Israel was eventually conquered by Assyria. However, the nearby kingdom of Judah, and in particular its capital city Jerusalem, managed to hold out. Therefore, the temple of Hashem at Jerusalem, also known as the First Temple, became the new center of the Israel religion, which became increasingly more monotheistic. Eventually, however, Judah was also conquered, this time by the Babylonians. The First Temple was destroyed, and Judah's elites were carried off to Babel, where they experienced the Babylonian exile from approximately 586 to 516 BCE. Which brings us to the Second Temple of Judaism.
Hebrew,
by this point, the Israelites were now known as Jews, named after the kingdom of
the territory.
However, when the Babylonians were conquered by the Persians allowed the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple to Hashem, which became the Second Temple. So, in many ways, the Second Temple Judaism was the direct descendant of the Israelite religion. However, it was almost certainly influenced by the interactions that the Jewish people were now having with their new foreign rulers. For example, the Persians followed a religion known as Zoroastrianism, and Zoroastrianism likely had an impact on Judaism. For example, the figure of Satan and the idea of there being an end of the world where new tribes of evil likely came from Zoroastrianism. 2.38 Greeks conquered the Persians, and Hellenism began to spread throughout the Middle East. Many ideas from the Greeks found their way into
culturally diverse.
But the most important thing you need to know about Second Temple Judaism is that by the Roman period, it was not a single unified religion, but rather a religion that had many different sects operating within it. The four main sects were the Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, and the Zealots.
Ecclesiology.
Quickly look at each one. The Sadducees represented the elites of Jewish society and included the priests who
Christology.
They were the group that were the most open to Hellenism. In contrast, the Pharisees generally associated with everyday people and included the scribes and
Jesus
scholars
Christ
who studied the
Son of God.
Scriptures. Next, there were the Essenes, who were the most mystical of the four groups, often living apart from the society and having a keen interest in things like angels and the idea of a Messiah.
Arise from the dead for the salvation.
Finally, there were the Zealots, who were the opposite of the Essenes in that they wanted real-world change. In other words, they wanted to overthrow the Roman government and reestablish political independence for the Jews. Now, here's the thing. Out of these four groups, only one survived the destruction of the Second Temple in 7th CE. This was the Pharisees.
Christian
after Jerusalem was destroyed, the Pharisees moved their headquarters to a nearby city called where they then became known as rabbis. The religion of Judaism, as it exists today, traces its roots back to these early rabbis, and therefore directly to the Pharisees.
That's true. I covered that video on
Hinduism
and Buddhism related aspects.
However, very late in the Second Temple period, a fifth Jewish sect had started to form, that of the earliest Christians. And this fifth sect survived the destruction as well.
Now, it
doesn't actually matter whether you believe that Jesus was God, or that he was just a man, or that he never existed at all. What is absolutely certain is that Christians existed by the end of the first century, and that these earliest Christians were Jews.
In
fact, many of the earliest Christians were likely
Christianity
Pharisees,
began in the first century.
It's also likely that
after the death
as well.
of Jesus
as
a
12 disciples,
Judaic sect, Hellenistic,
there also seems to have been a heavy Essene
in the province of Judea,
considering that both groups were apocalyptic, meaning that they believed in a hidden spirit world that was about to be revealed.
It's
the
the
only Jewish group that Christianity didn't seem to draw heavily from was the Sadducees. However, in addition to Jews, early Christianity also attracted people from a group known as the God-fearers. God-fearers were basically Gentiles. In other words, non-Jews,
Mediterranean
who were
Sea,
nonetheless very
despite
sympathetic
significant
towards
persecution.
Judaism, and
The
often
inclusion
liked
of
to
Gentiles
participate in Jewish
by
customs
Christianity
without actually
slowly
converting.
separate
Now, I
from
cannot stress
Judaism.
enough how important
Second century,
the
and
destruction of the
Constantine the
temple in
First
70
decriminalized
to both the
Christianity
development of
in
Christianity
the Roman
as well as
Empire.
the development of rabbinic Judaism. Prior
By
to
the
70
Edict of Milan,
CE, Judaism was very much a
313,
temple-based
later
religion.
convened
But
the
once the
Council of
temple was
Nicaea,
both early
325,
Christianity
where
and
Christianity
Judaism were
was
forced to adapt and change. Christianity adapted by focusing
consolidated
more and more on Jesus as the new
the boss,
spiritual high priest and on
the boss
sacrifice
upstairs.
as a replacement for the
Consolidated
earlier temple
is true.
sacrifices. In contrast,
Into
rabbinic Judaism
what would
adapted by
become the state religion.
Torah and meeting together in synagogues for prayer as the new ways to commune with God. However, this series is about the various branches of Christianity, not Judaism. So, from this point forward, I'm going to shift towards focusing exclusively on how Christianity continues to
of
develop.
the Roman Empire created
In the future, I might return to rabbinic Judaism
Pentecostalism.
and its modern branches as well. Okay, so following the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE,
has
Christianity
been a
went in
major
three very different
cultural
directions.
force in
First, there
Nigeria
were the Jewish Christians,
since
who
the
kept
early
following all
20th
the various
century.
Jewish practices in the same manner
It is
that
the
earliest
largest
Christians had done. So they continued to practice things like circumcision and not eating pork, in addition to revering Jesus as an important spiritual leader.
Pentecostalism.
Two groups that are
Here's the
representative
Protestant
of this branch are
Christian
the
movement
Nazarenes
that
and
has
Mennonites. Over time, though,
been a
Jewish
major
Christian
cultural
groups like
force
this
in
went
Nigeria
extinct.
since the
However,
early
it's
20th
thought
century.
that they may have
It is the
had
largest.
some influence on the development of Islam. Like the Nazarenes, Muslims see Jesus as being an important human prophet and even the Messiah,
Pentecostal
born of a virgin.
population in
They do
Africa.
not see Jesus
Chinese
as being
Pentecostalism
divine. So,
is the
if you
movement
want to know what
of
Jewish
Christians
Christians in the first
who share a
2
connection
CE were
to
like,
the apostolic
they were a lot like Muslims
church.
today, just
They
like
practice
the Quran and Muhammad.
speaking
In contrast to
in
the
tongues,
Jewish
praying
Christians, were the
for the
Holy
sick and
Christians,
worshiping
who primarily
with
consisted
joy.
of Gentiles.
Pentecostalism
Again,
in
Gentiles
Kenya
are simply
is a blend
non-Jews. The word Pauline
African
refers to the Apostle Paul,
religiosity
shortly before the
and
destruction of the temple.
Pentecostal
Paul
charismatic
wrote much of the New Testament.
Christian
Is
practices.
credited with introducing Christianity to
the
the
most
Gentiles.
influential
In his
Christian
writings, he
denominations
argues that
in
Gentile
Kenya.
Christians should not be required to follow Jewish customs, such as circumcision and not eating pork. In fact, Paul's main message was that Jesus' death and resurrection introduced a new
The Anglican
covenant.
Church of Kenya,
Superseded
ACK,
Jewish law.
is a province
Come back to
of
Pauline
the Anglican
Christianity in a
communion.
moment, but first, let's look
Communion.
at the third major branch of early Christianity, Gnosticism. Now, the first thing I want to make clear is that Gnosticism wasn't a single unified sect, and in fact, the word Gnosticism is actually a modern term
And
used
it
to lump
is
a bunch of
composed
different Christians
by 41
together.
dioceses. The current
Valentinians,
leader,
Sethians.
Jackson,
However, these
all
groups did
suffix.
differ from both Pauline Christianity and Jewish Christianity in several key ways. So I think from a general point
The
of view,
Anglican
putting them together
Church of
as a
Kenya
third major
claims
branch is
5
fair. So what the
million
various Gnostic groups
total
share in common
members.
is the idea
The Church
that
of
the physical
Nigeria
world was
is the
altogether
Anglican
bad,
Church
and
in Nigeria
the spiritual
is
world
the
was
second
all that really mattered. It
largest
thus emphasized
province
Jesus'
in the Anglican
divinity
communion.
and downplayed his humanity. Gnosticism is based on the Greek word gnosis, which means
Measured
knowledge.
by
Basically,
baptized
Gnostics believed
membership,
that they had access to
not
secret
by
knowledge
attendance.
of the spirit world. But like Jewish Christianity,
After
Gnostic Christianity
Church of England.
eventually died out. However, there is a minor religion that still exists today, known as Mandaism, that may trace its roots back to the early Gnostic Christians. Okay, so let's go back to
2016.
Pauline Christianity. From the
2016,
perspective of Christians
it stated
today, Pauline
that
Christianity
its membership
represents the original, true
was over 18 million.
and the Gnostic
Out of
and Jewish
total
Christians were simply early heretics.
Nigerian
However,
population
from a
of
secular
190 million.
these three branches
Chinese
were initially
Anglicanism
all on a
started
playing field.
in
And it just so happened that
1893
Pauline Christianity
in Szechuan.
was the quote-unquote winner.
Trinity
Whichever view you
Church
take, it's
was
clear that
built
things started to coalesce
in
during the
founding,
period between 180
known as
and
founding
213
under
CE. The
Catholic
Christian church at this
supervision
time is
as the
often
first
referred to
Anglican
as
church
the
in
Great
Szechuan.
Church, because it was during this period that the church
Style was
started to
in
become more
consideration
and more unified,
of being more
emerging
acceptable
as a
to the
distinct
locals.
religion.
Roman
A
Catholic
large number
refers to a branch
adherents.
of
The year
Christianity that
313
is part
CE is an
of
important date
the
in Christian history
Catholic
because
Church
this was the year
led by,
that the Roman Emperor Constantine
that's
the
true, that's
Great,
what they
together
were.
with his co-emperor Licinius,
Church
issued
led by
the Edict
the
of
Pope.
Milan, which gave Christianity legal
The
status
term
for the Roman
Roman
Empire,
Catholic
thus
is
protecting it
sometimes
from
used to
persecution.
differentiate
Shortly thereafter, in the year
the
325
Catholic Church
CE,
from other Christian groups.
convened the Council of Nicaea, which got all the various Christian bishops together to clarify what
Eastern
the
Orthodoxy
official doctrines of
is a
Christianity
branch
were.
of
And what
Christianity
they produced was a
that
document known as the
includes
Nicene
the
Creed.
Orthodox
Virtually
Catholic
every
Church,
Christian
known as the
denomination
Greek
today
Orthodox Church.
agrees with
It
the various position
is
statements
one
made in the
of the
Nicene Creed,
three
and therefore to this day,
main
the
branches of
Nicene
Christianity,
Creed serves
along with
as a way to
Catholicism
distinguish
and
mainstream
Protestantism.
Christianity from
Oriental
Christian
Orthodoxy
groups.
is a branch
But initially,
of
Nicene
Christianity.
Christianity had a competitor,
That's
Arian Christianity.
exactly
Note that this is Arian
That's
with an I, not Arian
includes
with a Y. Arian
Coptic,
Christians disagreed with
Orthodox,
the Nicene Creed
Syriac
and followed
Orthodox,
the teachings of a man named
Ethiopian
Arius
Orthodox,
instead.
and other
Basically, the difference
churches.
is this. According
These
to
churches
Arian
are also known
Christianity,
as
Jesus
the Old
did not
Oriental
always
churches.
exist. Instead, Jesus was made by God and
Church
thus
of the
subordinate
East.
to God. Likewise, Arian Christians believe
Et
that the Holy Spirit is also distinct
Magdalene,
from God the Father and Jesus
or the
the
East
Son.
Syriac
In
Church,
contrast,
also called
Nicene
the
Christians believe
Church
that God the Father, Jesus the Son,
of
and the Holy
Seleucia
Spirit are all
testify. The
co-eternal,
Persian Church,
meaning that they
the
all
Syrian
have
Church, the
no
Babylonian
beginning.
Church,
In other words, all
or
three
the
have
Nestorian
just
Church
always
is one
existed.
of
Nicene Christians also believe that God is one essence,
the
but three
Eastern
persons.
Nicene
So for a
Christianity.
while, both Arian Christianity
That
and Nicene Christianity existed
Right.
side by side, with Arian Christianity being found mostly
Right.
among the newly
From
converted
the
Germanics,
Christological
such as the Goths, Vandals, and Lombards,
controversies
and Nicene Christianity being found in the Roman
in
Empire.
the
But
5th
over time,
century and
Arianism
6th
faded
century,
away, so that
alongside
basically Nicene
that
Christianity
of
became the
Neophysitism,
only Christianity. In
which
fact, in the year
came to be known
380
as
CE,
the
Nicene Christianity was
Oriental
made the state
Orthodox
religion of the Roman Empire by
churches,
Emperor
and the
Theodosius
Chalcedonian
I
Church,
via the
from which
Edict of
Catholicism,
Thessalonica. A
Eastern
lot of people
Orthodoxy,
get
and
these two
Protestantism
edicts
were
confused,
derived,
thinking
and
that
the
it was
baptism
Constantine
is a
who
Christian
made Christianity the state
movement
religion. But keep in mind that he simply made
that originated
Christianity
in
legal.
the 16th
It was
century.
actually Theodosius
And
who
the
made it
Baptists
the official religion of the
believe
Empire.
that
About the same
baptism
time as the Edict of
should
Thessalonica,
only
a
be
second
performed
council was
on
held,
people
the
who.
Council of Constantinople. It is not shown on this chart though,
It's another thing I didn't
because it
mention.
leads to any
True.
schisms. However,
I confess
I do want to mention it
their
because it
faith
resulted in
in
a
Christ.
uniform
They are
revision
so
to the Nicene
known for
Creed.
their
The third
separation of church and
council
state
was the Council
and
of
their
Ephesus
pacifism.
in
It includes
431 CE.
Apostolic
This one
Christian
did
Church
result
Nazarene,
in the first
and
major split
Krishanska,
within Nicene
Nazarenska,
Christianity.
Zionist
Breaking away at
the
this point
Syrian
was the Church
Church
of the East,
of the East,
which was the national church of the Sassanid Empire
Eastern
of Persia.
Christian
Basically, these were
Church
Christians who lived outside of the Roman
that
Empire.
originated
There, Christians
the
tended
nation
to
of
a
Syria.
theology known as Nestorianism,
Nestorianism, yeah.
named after a man named Nestorius.
Syria
According to the
Syria
Council of Ephesus,
is also
Nestorians put
known
too much of an
as
emphasis
the
on
Holy
the
Apostolic
distinction between
Catholic
Jesus'
Assyrian
divinity
Church of the
and
East
his humanity. So the Church of the East went its own way
Christ
at this point.
is
Today,
God.
there's only one major independent
And some
denomination
ministries.
that traces its roots
Sita.
all the way back to the Church of the East,
Date
and that is
century
the
dates back to
Assyrian Church of the
1952
East.
when
Based
John McBride,
primarily in
a
northern Iraq.
POC
They are
missionary,
currently led by
arrived to
Patriarch
Nairobi
Allah
with
III and number
Virgin Allah
around
III.
400,000. The fourth ecumenical council was the Council of Chalcedon, in 451 CE, and yet again, this one led to another major division. This time,
establishing a church.
Orthodox
The Christ
split
liberation,
the mainstream. So basically, these churches,
of the answer,
Syrian Church of
is
East,
like a
are known
religious
as
ministry
non-Chalcedonian
within,
churches, whereas everyone else is known as Chalcedonian. The other term
The
used for the Oriental Orthodox
Christ
churches is
liberation,
miaphysite. Mia
Christian
means
center,
one, and
denomination.
phys means nature. This sums up the difference between the
Focusing
Oriental
on
Orthodox churches
providing
and the Chalcedonian
spiritual
churches.
guidance
The
and
Oriental
prayer support
Orthodox churches believe that
through
Jesus had just
a
one
dedicated
nature, which was a mix of divinity and humanity, whereas the Chalcedonian churches believe that Jesus was one person with two natures. Now, before I explain the Oriental Orthodox churches, I want to introduce the concept of the pentarch.
answer chapter,
Penta meaning
where
five. Over
individuals
time,
can
there
seek
emerged
immediate
5 cities that were
answers
the most
to their
important
prayers
centers of Christianity.
or
These were Rome,
concerns often
Constantinople,
based on a
Alexandria,
belief in the
Antioch,
power
and
of
Jerusalem.
divine
Each one had a
intervention.
leader known as a patriarch, and hence each center was known
Now
as
let's do the reaction.
However, following
I'll
the
tell you,
of
viral reports.
2 of these patriarchies
4
experienced major schisms. These were Alexandria, which is in Egypt,
Thoughts
and Antioch,
for the
which is in
video.
Syria. The Christians in Alexandria, who supported Miaphysitism, broke away and became known as the
Miaphysitism,
Coptic
yeah, that's
Orthodox
what
Church.
they chose,
And
what that
Christians
means.
in Antioch, who supported Miaphysitism, broke away and became known as the Syriac Orthodox Church. Shortly thereafter, they were also joined by the Armenian Apostolic Church,
That's true.
which also supported Miaphysitism. So, to this day, there are actually 2 competing patriarchs of both Alexandria and Antioch. Currently, the Eastern Orthodox Patriarch of Alexandria is Theodore II.
Theodore II, yeah.
The Coptic Orthodox
Is the Pope.
Patriarch is Tawadros
Second Pope.
II. Interestingly, Tawadros also uses the title of Pope. So yeah, if you thought this guy was the only Pope now that Benedict
They're wrong.
has passed away, you were wrong. There's still Pope Tawadros II as well. When it comes to Antioch, the Eastern Orthodox Patriarch is currently John X, whereas the Syriac Orthodox Patriarch is Ignatius Ephraim II. Up until the 20th century, the Oriental Orthodox branch of Christianity consisted of only 3 autonomous churches. However, in 1959, the Ethiopian Church became independent from the Coptic Church, and then the Eritrean Church became independent from Ethiopia in 1991. Note that both the Ethiopian and Eritrean churches use the word Tewahedo in their names, which is a Ge'ez word meaning unified.
Sure.
I also want to point out that the Ethiopian Church is currently the largest of the Oriental Orthodox churches and has about 40 million members. They are currently led by a patriarch named Matthias. Finally, there's the Malankara Orthodox Syrian Church, located in India.
That's true.
It was originally under the jurisdiction of the Syriac Orthodox Church, but in 1912 became independent. So that basically takes care of all the non-Chalcedonian churches. In episode 2, I'll be diving deeper into the Chalcedonian Pentarch.
That's true.
And the great schism
that
eventually occurred
between
the Roman Catholic Church and
that
the
is
Eastern
several
Orthodox
videos.
Church. I'll also be looking at how each of those churches are organized, particularly all the various branches of the Eastern Orthodox Church. Then, from episode 3 onwards, I'll be looking at the various Protestant denominations, which is where things really start to go in a bunch of different directions. Until then, let me know what you think of the series so far, and which branch of Christianity you are most looking forward to me covering. Thanks for watching.
Exactly. Very true. Very true, right? I'd probably look forward to covering Anabaptism against my dad's denomination and my denomination. Anyway, don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, watch my videos, subscribe to my channel, Crossberry Pastor. Don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe to my channel, Crossberry Pastor from now. Watch my videos, subscribe to my channel, Crossberry Pastor from now. I'll leave a link to the original video in the description, a link to his channel, a link to my channel in the description, so you can watch it, original video, so you can subscribe and check me out and check him out. He needs a lot of subscribers. And I'll let you go now. See ya.